percent literally means of 100. If you've ever actually looked at a percent sign, you'll notice, and a student taught me this, that it actually has the elements of 100, the 1 and 2 zeros. So when we think about percent, what we're actually saying, in this case, 78 out of 100. So this looks like things we've seen before. It's like a fraction and can be converted into a decimal. So that's what we're going to do now. First, converting from percent to decimal. So if I start off with, for example, 25%, that means 25 out of 100 from what we did before. And we know that when we have 100, anything over 100, we count the zeros, and that is how many decimal places we have. So 25 over 100 as a decimal is 0.25, which means 25% is 0.25 as a decimal. If we get into something a little more complicated, like 86.5%, basically, you're doing the same thing. You think of it over as 100, or you move the 2 decimal places. So you can also think of it as just going like 1, 2 hops of the decimal place. So my answer then would be 0.865. 86.5% is 0.865. Okay. Save some space here. We also can convert from a decimal to percent. Okay, and this should be very easy, because if we think about what we just did over here, we move the decimal to the left 2 spaces. In this case, we'll just be moving it to the right 2 spaces. So if I have 0.93 as my number, I know from fractions that this is actually representative of 93 over 100, which would then be 93%. But if you think about it, all I've done is I've moved this decimal place over. So if we take another example, 0.539, I'm just moving my decimal place to the right. 1, 2, because zeros, 1, 2 over 100, and that will give me 53.9%. Why don't you try some? 43% is 62.5% is 0.64 as a percent is, and here we'll keep this so that you know the instructions, 0.825 is, and 0.9375 is. I'll start here. Remember that when you're moving this over 1, 2, you're still going to need to keep that decimal place even though you have percent. And while percents work differently in that fractions and decimals together is usually not recommended, decimals and percents is fine. So in this case, we have another one, 93.75%. Okay, now, very important, don't round unless you are asked. Okay, because if we want to see that you're moving the decimal places properly, we won't want you to round. So that was the easy part. Now we have to do something a little more difficult. And that is, actually, this is not difficult, this is easy. Converting from a percent to a fraction. This is actually super easy. It's the next part that's hard. So converting from a percent to a fraction, it already is in the name. So if you have 97%, what you have is 97 out of 100. If you have 55.2%, what you have is 55, and remember, in this case, you have to keep that decimal over 100. So all of that is the easy part. The harder part is converting from fraction to percent. Okay, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to outline 4 different ways to do so. Okay, so converting from fraction to percent. The first way is easy. If it's on 100, then you just use the number with a percent sign. So 38 over 100 becomes 38%. Now, you're not going to find anything that easy on a test, so let's look at the second way. You can find the decimal and then make a percent from that. So if your fraction is 3/4 and you don't know what to do with this, then you just divide like you would for any fraction. Divide the numerator by the denominator, and you'd get, in this case, 4 doesn't go into 3, so you put the 0, decimal, 4 goes into 37 times, that's 28. To remainder, drop a 0, 4 goes into 25 times. That finishes it, and so if it's 0.75, then we've said already from before that that would be 75%. The third way is to find the equivalent fraction on 100. Okay, so if, for example, I have 1/2 and I want it to be on 100, what did I do here? I multiply by 50. What do I do here? I multiply by 50, and you have 50 over 100, which is 50%. The last one is to cross multiply. So if you have 4 on 10 and you want it to be over 100, then you pretend there's a question mark or a variable there and you cross multiply. So you end up with 10 question mark is equal to 4 times 100. 10 question mark equals 400. You divide both sides by 10 to get rid of this, and question mark ends up being 40. So now it's your turn. If you got the following on your quizzes, what would your percents be? A, 4/5. B, and these you can try on your own. So let's try 4/5. 4/5, if I want to put it on 100, what did I do here? I multiply by 20. What do I do here? I multiply by 20. So this is 80, which means it's 80%. Here, 15/20, okay. What did I do? I multiply by 5. What do I do? I multiply by 5. 75/100 equals 75%. Maybe I don't remember what 1/8 is, so I'm going to try doing it the division way. 1/8 is 1 divided by 8. This goes in 0. Put my decimal, 0. This goes in once, 8. 2 remainder, I drop a 0. 8 goes into 22 times, that's 16. Remainder 4, I drop another 0. That's 5. And that's 40. So when I have a decimal, I move it 2 places. So I have 12.5% as my answer. Here, maybe try cross multiplying. I'm going to have 10 question mark equals 9 times 100. 10 question mark equals 900. I divide both sides by 10. And I get question mark equals 90. So it's 90%. And then E, super easy. It's on 100, so I just have the number that's already there as a percent. And there you go. Good luck.